Good evening and welcome to another installment of the New York Minute Sports Show. Ken Rosenthal with the AL East latest news. Are the Yankees trying to pry a flamethrower from the Miami Marlins? And the Toronto Blue Jays are doing everything they can to build a mega team to go to the World Series in 26. We'll break it all down for you right here. New York Minute Sports. It's New York sports for New York nuts. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. We got 41 days until pitchers and catchers, folks. Let's go!
It's New York Minute Sports.
And yes, I'm talking about the AL East. And we are going to talk specifically in this segment about the New York Yankees. Now, Yankee fans are sort of losing their minds, like Cubs fans as well, because these are two teams that really have not done much as of yet. I want to show you, to start this segment, what exactly has happened in the AL East, the biggest moves that have taken place for each of the four main contenders.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you for joining me with another installment of the New York Minute Sports Show. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. And the New York Yankees talking to Cabrera from the Miami Marlins in possible trade talks. Now, I hear a lot of Yankee fans going, guys, why aren't the Yankees making any moves? New York Minute, why aren't the Yankees making any moves? I'll tell you exactly why. Because nobody else is making moves. The New York Yankees are usually holding the bag, and the New York Yankees usually get bent over a barrel when it comes to negotiations. Now, for the last decade, players have used the New York Yankees franchise as leverage to get bigger contracts from other teams. Guess what? Those days are over, folks. So what the New York Yankees did to Cody Bellinger was, you know what, Cody? We're not going to give you a deal. Go out, take all the offers that you possibly want. Just what we ask is come back to us last, and we'll give you a final offer. Now the New York Yankees have give Cody Bellinger two offers, and it seems like the alarm clock went off on the offseason with the New York Yankees because they woke up. But I'll tell you, the Toronto Blue Jays have been up since day one of the offseason when it started with getting Dylan Cease. Now they get the Japanese player, third baseman, which is a great acquisition for the Toronto Blue Jays. In fact, another one that I thought the New York Yankees should have taken on their own. Now, do you find a coincidence with the New York Yankees talking trade talks right now with the Miami Marlins? Now, let's scratch our head. Put the tinfoil cap on for a second. Last week, what happened? All those OnlyFans stories with Jazz Chisholm marrying an OnlyFans and going crazy on Twitter. You can see the link at the end of this video for the video of me breaking it down because you know Jazz Chisholm's my buddy. So what about this? Jazz Chisholm, who has been noticed in trade bait, who the Yankees will not give a big contract to. The Yankees organization is not high on because he is a mental disaster waiting to happen. You just saw it transpire on Twitter. What if we got a reunion with Jazz Chisholm going back to the Miami Marlins for Cabrera, the 27-year-old flamethrower who pitched his ass off against the New York Yankees last year down in Miami, and also at the end of the year helped beat the Mets in crucial games. Guy can throw triple digits and has a sinker. And now, yes, the New York Yankees, it seems like overkill with all these pitchers that they're going to have coming in from spring training. But guess what? Let's go in the Wayback Machine. We started the season last year with Cookie Carrasco and Marcus starter Stroman last year, and it was almost a disaster when Garrett Cole went down. So it seems like a reoccurring theme in spring training in Major League Baseball that your starters will go down. You will have injuries. It just depends on who. So you can never use enough starting pitching. Not to mention Yarborough, Luis Heel, Clark Schmidt, Will Warren, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, and Garrett Cole. Now, remember, Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon are not going to be starting the season. They are not rushing Garrett Cole back, and who are we going to get back when we get Garrett Cole back? And Carlos Rodon has bone chips and will be shut down, and who knows how long he will be on the shelf. So the New York Yankees are going to need pitching in the beginning of the year because Max Fried's workload was the most he's ever had in his career this year, and he's always had problems with injuries. Knock on wood for the New York Yankees, but this might be to shore up their starting rotation just in case the worst of the worst happens, and now the Yankees, and we've seen it in the playoffs last year. What was the Yankees' biggest problem? Pitching, pitching, pitching. That starting rotation completely fell apart underneath the pressure of the postseason, and the Yankees are trying to correct that. Now, let's go to Ken Rosenthal with his breakdown of the AL East on foul territory.
And yes, I'm talking about the AL East. And we are going to talk specifically in this segment about the New York Yankees. Now, Yankee fans are sort of losing their minds, like Cubs fans as well, because these are two teams that really have not done much as of yet. I want to show you, to start this segment, what exactly has happened in the AL East, the biggest moves that have taken place for each of the four main contenders. I'm excluding Tampa Bay for now. They are not perhaps at the same level as the four teams I'm going to talk about right here. The Blue Jays, we know what they've done. Dylan Cease, Cody Ponce, Tyler Rogers, and as we discussed, Kazuma Okamoto. The Red Sox, Sonny Gray, Johan Oviedo, Wilson Contreras, with another big bat to come, most likely.
When you look at these names on this list, the Yankees have lost the offseason in the AL East so far. It's not over yet, and there's still 6 to 7 major free agents left on the market. But the New York Yankees have been in hibernation all winter long, waiting for the other shoe to drop and waiting for the first domino to fall. And are they getting left behind with that style? Let me know in the comments below, because the New York Yankees, Ryan Yarbrough, Paul Blackburn, and Ahmad Rosario on this team is a pitiful showing by the New York Yankees front office so far. They better start getting cracking if they don't want to be in third to fourth place in the AL East in 2026.
The Orioles, these are just some of the names that they've acquired. Pete Alonso, Taylor Ward, Shane Baz, Ryan Helsley. They've made some other moves as well. And then there are the Yankees. And the Yankees' three biggest additions, you see them right there, are guys that they re-signed from last year's club. Ryan Yarbrough, Paul Blackburn, Ahmed Rosario. These are complementary.
And you got to remember, I said a few episodes ago that Brian Cashman likes to get cute. These are the two moves that Brian Cashman pulls. During the trade deadline, when he brings back an injured pitcher from last year, he says it's almost like an acquisition at the trade deadline. Then at the trade deadline, if you noticed, Brian Cashman was getting guys that were under control for 2 to 3 years. So Brian Cashman theoretically already started his offseason during the trade deadline last year. Bednar, Duvall, Ryan McMahon, and Caballero were all under control, guys. Also, Bird, who's in our AAA right now that we got from the Colorado Rockies, is also under control. So this is what Brian Cashman tries to do. He will have more excuses than a pregnant nun every time they ask him why he's sitting on his hands. He's like, well, we have people coming back 3 months into the season, so we really don't need pitching. And then these guys really showed us some quality. Paul Blackburn pitched in games that we were down by 11 runs in mop-up duty. He did the same thing for the Mets the season before. What do the New York Yankees see in Blackburn that the Mets didn't see with their pitching lab, where they just converted closers into starters? I mean, it didn't end well, but the New York Yankees need to get cracking. And the rest of, like I said in the beginning of the video, the rest of Major League Baseball is not doing anything. But the New York Yankees aren't the rest of Major League Baseball. They are the exception to the rule, and they're getting left behind in the AL East.
Entry pieces, as is Paul DeYoung, who agreed to a minor league contract with the Yankees yesterday. And as we discussed in the first segment, the Yankees, at least to start the season, are in kind of a tricky spot with their rotation. As I mentioned, Rodon, Cole, and Schmidt are not going to be there at the start of the season. Rodon likely returns first. His elbow surgery was bone chips. Then Cole coming off the Tommy John, and then perhaps in the second half, Clark Schmidt. They've got, obviously, starting pitchers that they're quite comfortable with despite all these injuries, but they want to add at least one more, and they're trying to do that, as we discussed. Cabrera, Peralta, whoever it might be, maybe a free agent drops that they want. They're also looking to add some bargain relievers. They are a team that did not necessarily participate in the high end of the free agent.
The New York Yankees' biggest problems last year was their bullpen. Now, Brian Cashman usually is able to sprinkle pixie dust over the bullpen, and they get these reclamation projects like Luke Weaver, and they turn out to be aces. Look at Jonathan Loáisiga 2 years ago. They relied heavily on Jonathan Loáisiga to come back, like I told you, an acquisition during the middle of the season, and he came back and he was terrible, and it threw the whole bullpen off its calibration. Also, when you have Lolev Dev giving up 15 earned runs, that really throws a stick into the spokes of the New York Yankees. So the New York Yankees had two things that usually don't happen to them. They had a terrible bullpen during the regular season, and their starting pitching didn't show up during the postseason. And I told you this before, and I'll tell you again, and I'll probably tell you in another 3 months. Carlos Rodon is a liability when it comes to postseason ball. When the situation and the pressure gets higher, he gets more mental, and his scrambled eggs brains come out, and he acts like Farver from Super Troopers.
Market for relievers. Actually, I should not say not necessarily. They did not participate. They lost Devin Williams. They lost Luke Weaver. They've got Bednar in the trade.
Yeah, but Devin Williams and Luke Weaver, I'm done with this storyline. They were gone. We didn't want Luke Weaver back. We thought that the Atlanta Braves were going to sign him for $1.2 million. The New York Mets completely overpaid for him. Devin Williams was a liability last year that we got for Nestor Cortez. Do you think David Stearns gave him up for Nestor Cortez, thinking that he was the best closer in baseball? When we got him, we were told that he was the third best closer in baseball. Shit, he wasn't even in the top 20 last year. So, man, addition by subtraction is a big thing in Major League Sports, okay? Devin Williams and Luke Weaver. I told you about Luke Weaver. He was tipping his pitches. They tried to correct it, and when he'd get in games, he'd go right back to his old ways. When he was trying his new arm slot and get roughed up, he'd throw it from his old arm slot, tip the pitch, and you noticed how many 3-run shots that Luke Weaver gave up in the month of August and the month of September, and shit, we couldn't even turn to him in the postseason because he was another liability. So the New York Yankees needed to trim the fat because they plugged and played on that bullpen last year, and it didn't work out.
Coming back, and they've got Doval coming back as well, and others, but the Yankees could use some additional bullpen depth. There's no question about that. And then there's the question of the bat. And what are they going to do to replace Cody Bellinger if they need to replace him, or do they simply re-sign him?
And this is the problem, dude. You're going to overpay for Cody Bellinger now on some extraordinary salary after you just got him on a 1-year deal and the Cubs let him walk. The Cubs let Tucker walk as well. And now you're going to completely have to overpay for a guy that has another year on his... He won an MVP 7 years ago. He's a young guy, but he's been playing in Major League Baseball forever, guys. And I think he's on the way to have a down year because, like I said, protection in the lineup goes both ways with Aaron Judge and Cody Bellinger. Do you notice that everyone that hits in above and below Aaron Judge in the lineup, they have a career year, and he just keeps getting people paid around the league? And also, can you justify paying Cody Bellinger more money than Aaron Judge? Because if it's any truth to the reports of the 8 years, $400 million coming out of Scott Boras, you can walk
a big deal and have him as...
Also, what does this bode well for Spencer Jones? If we are dying to overpay Cody Bellinger the amount of money we can, and Hal is as cheap as he is, why wouldn't we be paying Spencer Jones $500,000 league minimum to be our starting center fielder if he could actually play the position? But what happens with the Yankees farm system is that they only teach exit velocity and bat speed, and they don't teach fundamentals over there, and nobody can field the fucking position. Look at Jason Dominguez. We heard he was a 5-tool player. I don't know what the 5th tool is. What, a garden hoe? Because he played outfield like he was on roller skates. They asked Spencer Jones to come over and start running shagging balls in November in Yankee Stadium. Yes, in November. Now Jason Dominguez is down in the Winter League in the Dominican Republic, and he's hitting .210. So it doesn't bode well for the future, and these guys are supposed to be trade pieces. During the trade deadline, apparently they were going after Turk Skubal and Paul Skeens, and they were throwing Spencer Jones and Lombard Jr. at them, and it could have got the deal done. I've told you before on this show to nauseum, I do not trust the development of positional players in the Yankees franchise. I would rather take all of these young guys, package them up for proven players in Major League Baseball to get what we have, because Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge's window is completely collapsing in front of our eyes, and they have 0 rings to show for it.
Their leading complimentary piece to Aaron Judge, or one of their leading complimentary pieces to Aaron Judge. They need to re-sign Bellinger. He's their top priority. They seem much more interested in bringing him to New York, bringing him back where he is proven in New York, than going after Kyle Tucker, who might not be as comfortable in that kind of market and frankly is not as versatile a defender as Bellinger is. Bellinger can play the outfield for now and first base later if you need him. Can do both at the same time. He's that kind of guy. So Bellinger is their priority and has been their priority. And Joel Sherman of the New York Post reported yesterday that the Yankees have made a second offer to him. They clearly are focused on him. If they lose him, yeah, they've got a problem. I don't know exactly where they would turn, but the main overriding theme here is Aaron Judge is in the prime of his career still. He is in his early 30s, 33, 34 range. But that prime is not going to last forever. It might seem like that right now.
It's like there's an echo in here.
Judge is at the peak of his powers and is coming off, if not his best season, certainly one.
I think Ken should start playing my video and talking on it.
One of his best seasons. And as Yankee fans have repeatedly pointed out, you cannot waste, and waste is a relative term because they keep making the playoffs, but you cannot keep going forward and not put your best foot forward with Aaron Judge. And
that's the thing, man. And Aaron Judge's contract is a deal. I know that sounds crazy. $400 million is a deal. But if you want to talk about the value that the Yankees get for $400 million, Juan Soto makes $20 million more than Aaron Judge a year. Okay? And he's not better than Aaron Judge. Not better.
Is the complaint that Yankee fans have had, and it's an understandable one. You have to build your best possible team around him. They know it. That's why they tried for Juan Soto last year. That's why they signed Fried and Bellinger and did all the things they did after they lost Soto. They're going to be there. They're going to do things. But right now, it's fair to wonder, okay, what if you don't get Bellinger? What happens then? So here they are. They've talked a lot about how they don't want to go over $300 million. At least their owner, Hal Steinbrenner, has. Or at least he said, we can build a winning team without being at $300 million. And that's certainly true. They were at $296 to end last season, and now they're at $263. Clearly room for a $30 million player, if not more. And I expect that they're going to do things. But at some point, you've got to see it, right? And time is a wasting. It's not over yet, the offseason, not even close to over. As we discussed in the first segment, there are so many things happening still. So many things that are in play, so many things still to take place.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate here for a second. The Yankees' advantage by waiting, more situations can pop up. And teams like the Toronto Blue Jays, who have seemed to spend all the bullets in their chamber this offseason, and the Boston Red Sox, who are another cheapskate team like the New York Yankees now, have made their moves. I think the Baltimore Orioles are theoretically done for their offseason with Pete Alonso. So by playing the waiting game and waiting for the dominoes to fall, maybe something will pop up. Brian Cashman can be hitting those phones, working the back channels, and possibly work out that deal with Jazz Chisholm for Fernando Tatis Jr. to the San Diego Padres, which I think is a no-brainer. Eat the money.
But the Yankees know that their mission is far from complete. Now, one good thing about the Yankees, or one promising thing, at least for 2026, and this was pointed out by my producer, Jeremy Meyer. Jeremy said, and he looked at the schedule, wow, their schedule in the first 2 months is fairly easy, at least in a relative sense. Only 4 teams, or only 4 series against playoff teams from last year. That would be, this is in the early 2 months, the first 2 months. Seattle, Boston, Milwaukee, and Toronto. Those are the 4 series against playoff teams before June that the Yankees will have. Now, they're also going to have 2 series against the Orioles. A number of teams that still have unfinished business. And in that story, we noted that the top 3 free agents, according to the Athletics big board, are still unsigned. That would be Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette, and Alex Bregman. 6 of the 9 are still unsigned, and 20 of the top 50. And there are still a number of trade conversations percolating as well. And we're going to start today talking about one of those trade conversations that I reported yesterday with Will Salmon. with Chris Kirschner about the Yankees and the Yankees' interest in Edward Cabrera of the Miami Marlins. Now, we wrote that talks have taken place. We wrote that as of now, no deal is close, but certainly this is something the Marlins have been discussing for quite some time. There are other teams in the mix. After we reported this, a number of reports came out citing the Mets, the Cubs, and others that are also sniffing around on Cabrera, as they say in baseball. The Orioles have
I know you got animals in there, Ventura. I hear 'em scratching.
been involved in the past as well. It certainly appears that Cabrera is going to get traded. He's an interesting guy. He's extremely talented, immensely talented. He also gets hurt a lot. He was on the IL twice last year, and he is a guy that if you get him, you love him, of course. You love the talent, but you hold your breath as well that he will stay healthy. And with the Yankees, the situation that they're in, as Chris and I described in this story, Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Clark Schmidt, all starting the season on the injured list. They're supposed to return at various times. Rodon and Cole first, both in the first half. Rodon, April or May.
But the one problem with this Cabrera guy is that he's almost a carbon copy of Luis Gil. Bad control, walks a lot of guys, unpredictability with the pitches. You hear that with Luis Gil on the broadcast a lot, right? Where the batter doesn't really know where the pitch is going because guess what? Luis Gil doesn't really know where the pitch is going. So that unpredictability can really bode well for a starting pitcher, but if they get away from their control and they get away from their arm slot, that's when you can start walking. And remember, Luis Gil averaged 4 walks an outing this year.
Cole, May or June, and then Schmidt hopefully in the second half. So the Yankees do clearly have a rotation opening, and that is one reason, of course, why they're interested in Edward Cabrera. We'll be talking more about the Yankees and their offseason in the Inside Dish. Now, obviously, Edward Cabrera is not the only starting pitcher in play with regard to trade. Now, you have also Mackenzie Gore of the Washington Nationals, and you have Freddie Peralta of the Milwaukee Brewers. And we reported in the same story that
now, out of all those guys, the guy that I want the least is Freddie Peralta. Because if you have Stearns, the former general manager, and Peralta is a Stearns guy who's across town, and the New York Mets are desperate for starting pitching, why wouldn't they be breaking down the door in a trade for this guy? So it makes me suspect, and I think that the numbers are a little bit better than what they really are. I think that they're a little bit of empty calories here. Gore is one of those guys that if you're a fantasy baseball player, like my buddy Kyle in the Yankee group, that in our group chat, shout out to Kyle, who's been high on this guy for a long time. He pitched very well against the New York Yankees also. So I would rather go with a guy like that who's going to have a little bit less of a price tag. And you know Brian Cashman loves doing little projects like that. So I would say out of all these 3 guys, I would want Gore from the Nationals, but he is going to cost a lot more. But if you go and get Gore, you can give up a guy like Luis Gil who walks the stadium and also might be a closer at one point in his career.
We wrote about Cabrera that the Yankees are among the many teams that have also shown interest in Peralta. Why is Peralta so attractive, even though he is under club control for only one more year? Well, 1, because he's good, and 2, because he is incredibly affordable. $8 million for this season coming up, and that's about half of what Corbin.
Okay. I didn't know that he was only owed $8 million. But then why aren't the Mets all over him if Stearns likes the deal?
Burns was making when the Orioles acquired him from the Brewers 2 years ago. So Peralta is attractive not only to teams like the Yankees and the Mets and the Braves and others who would be classified as big market, but even small market teams can afford him, and they're in the mix as well. Do I expect Peralta to get traded? I would say yes, I do expect that to happen. I expect the Brewers to get pushed to the point where they feel like they're comfortable doing it. And if they get a major league ready starting pitcher in return.
This is another Ohtani situation. This is another Turk Skubal situation. This is a guy with a small market who is going to be a big-time free agent within a year. And when they can let him go and get something for him rather than playing the whole year with him, letting him go into free agency, You can fleece other franchises for multiple picks and multiple players for a guy like Peralta because he's going to be gone in a year. And the Brewers, they plug and play. They bring guys up from their farm system and let guys go.
They would have some depth in that rotation. They actually already have depth. It's Woodruff, it's Mizorowski, and it's Priester to start that rotation. And then they have a bunch of other candidates that they feel pretty good about. If they got one more, they feel even better, even without Freddie Peralta, who, of course, has been immensely important to that team over the years and coming off arguably his best year. So we'll see what happens with Peralta and we'll see what happens with Cabrera, but trade talks are ongoing. And of course, free agency is ongoing. Framber Valdez still out there. Ranger Suarez still out there. And the big free agent hitters that I mentioned, not just Tucker, Bregman, and Bichette, but also.
These owners must have got together and were like, we got to drive the price down on these guys, because that's the only reason that the whole month of December, really nothing was going down. Cody Bellinger, Kyle Tucker, all the big names are still out there. Bo Bichette.
Cody Bellinger and a number of other lesser hitters still in the open market as well. We did have a big signing over the weekend, and that was the Toronto Blue Jays. Kind of a surprise entry into the Kazuma Okamoto sweepstakes, a late entry perhaps, but they got it done. 4 years, 6.
The one thing that about this move is that we don't know a lot about this Japanese player. But the one thing that I can commend the Toronto Blue Jays for is that they are doing everything in their power to field a winner this year and to let their fan base know that we want to be back in the mix every single year and that this isn't a one and done and that we are going to put people around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and we're going to try to run this back and be the best team in the AL East. I don't know what this guy is going to do, but a right-handed third baseman with power is exactly something that the Yankees could have used. They could have opened up the market to Japan to bring that extra revenue in, which would drive Hal amazingly into a good mood. But think about this, New York Yankee fans. If we're going to start the season with what we have going on right now, the New York Yankees have a platoon at third, they have a platoon at shortstop, and they have a platoon in left field right now. Does that sound like a World Series team to you? Let me know in the comments below.
$60 million. And he seems to be a guy who, from an offensive standpoint, fits them really well. As opposed to Murakami, he is a guy who makes a lot of contact. And that is why he ultimately got the better guarantee, in my opinion. Murakami took $34 million over 2 years from the White Sox. He's betting on himself, betting that he'll ultimately have 2 good years and then go back in the open market and do even better. Okamoto, a little bit older than Murakami, and you see the positions right there: third base, first base, and outfield. And this is where I don't quite see the fit for the Blue Jays. Offensively.
See, I see a fit for the New York Yankees. Third base, first base, and outfield, that's exactly what we need. A guy that can platoon in left field when Jason Dominguez needs a day off, a guy that can help out Ben Rice when he needs a day off, or a guy that we can put at third when Ryan McMahon can't hit water if he fell out of a boat. Yes, we get gold-level defense from him at third base, but I want some power. We need right-handed power. You cannot rely on Giancarlo Stanton. He will get hurt during this season, and after last postseason's performance, if he's not producing during the playoffs, why is he on the team?
Yes, absolutely. Fits into their high contact profile. But from a defensive standpoint, it's been reported and said that he is better at first base than third. The Jays obviously have a first baseman. That's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Third base, yes, Okamoto could play there. You can move Ernie Clement to second.
See, this does make sense because this is what the New York Yankees used to do. Now the Toronto Blue Jays are doing it. You go and get that $60 million piece, and if he's a bench player and it doesn't turn out, so be it. We got plenty of money. It's just a money issue. You're giving this guy $15 million a year. That's $3.5 million less than Ryan McMahon. Okay, and this guy is one of the best players over in Japan. I seen him play during the World Baseball Classic, and he's a decent player. Now he can play first base, and people will get hurt during the regular season. He might not have a spot on the squad now, but when spring training happens and the first 3 months of the season happen and people will go down, that's when you need a luxury piece on the bench that you can plug and play in 3 different positions on the field. But the New York Yankees don't do that anymore. Think about 1996. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine when they had Cecil Fielder, Tim Rock Raines, and Wade Boggs on their bench.
second, Addison Barger to right field. It works if you view him as that. Now, if not, you bounce him around third base, first base, outfield, DH, okay, but you're paying $15 million a year for a super utility player. And maybe that's worth it. We'll see. But what's really interesting about the Blue Jays is a lot of people still believe they are in the mix for one more big bat. Alex Bregman would seem like less of a priority for sure. And that's what Cody Stavenhagen and Mitch Bannon wrote in The Athletic after the signing was reported. They wrote that Bregman is less likely. And you still have, though,
Bregman's going back to Boston. That seems like the only market for him. It seems like the Alex Bregman situation is very, very similar to Pete Alonso's situation last year, where the Boston Red Sox pretty much know that he is going to be back. They let him go test the market, come back to us, let us make a final offer on what you get in the market. Now, remember, when teams do that, like the New York Yankees, they could be driving down the price of the player indirectly. Because if they go tell Bregman, go get offers from other teams, and he doesn't receive a single offer, that $41 million offer just turned into 31. And then they go, hey, we'll give you $31 million. And he goes, no. And they go, all right, go ask other teams for it. And then he doesn't get it and comes back with his tail in between his legs like Pete Alonso until he gets fed up and goes and signs a contract with a team that appreciates him like the Baltimore Orioles.
Chet, who could play second base, that would raise questions about how the Jays would use Ernie Clement, their postseason hero. And also Kyle Tucker, maybe even the best fit in certain respects, because the Jays have two outfielders who are potential free agents after.
Kyle Tucker is dangerous if he goes to the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't think that he fits for the New York Yankees. I'd rather have Cody Bellinger because he does play first, he does play center, and he's better defensively than Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker is younger, but I cannot make any sense of giving Kyle Tucker the same amount or more money than Aaron Judge. And if it's any truth on the reports of Cody Bellinger trying to look for 8 years for $400 million, see you later, dude. I'd rather run with the young guys and plug and play and watch these guys develop.
This season, I'm talking about George Springer and Dalton Varsho. So it's an interesting dynamic in play with the Jays. They've had.
Also, real quick, Brian Cashman still brings up the Astros cheating controversy of 2017, 2018. So I think that's a major stick in the spokes of the deals between Yankees and Tucker, because Brian Cashman still brings that up. It's still a soft spot, a sore spot for him, and he doesn't like former Astros.
What we've seen so far as a tremendous offseason. John Heyman has written that he views them as the team to beat in the AL East. I would tend to agree with that at this moment. I don't know that we can necessarily judge anything right now because there's so much.
I completely agree. I think right now with the teams that are constructed the way that they are, I think the Blue Jays are the best team in the AL East, and then it's a 2A, 2B with the Boston Red Sox and New York Yankees. They're almost identical.
Who are much improved. They're also going to play the Mets, who are another team that is driving their fans nuts and needs to get going. But relatively speaking, there's a lot of Kansas City and Sacramento and Tampa Bay on that schedule in the first 2 months. No opponent is easy in Major League Baseball. We're not discounting anyone. But again, relatively speaking, the Yankees, without those starting pitchers to start the season, are going to be in a reasonably competitive spot simply because their schedule should allow for it. So here are the Yankees. We're still waiting on them. We're still waiting on the Cubs. We're still waiting on the Mets. Things are going to happen. I promise.
All right. Well, we're going to have to trust in Ken and believe in him because it seems a little dim right now, and it's always the darkest before the dawn. So I will be covering it every single day. Now in the new year, the holidays are over. New Year's is over. We got to get revved up for pitchers and catchers. Like I said, 41 days until we head down to Tampa. The New York Yankees have some work to do. Re-sign Cody Bellinger. Trade Jazz Chisholm to the San Diego Padres for Fernando Tatis Jr. with Will Warren and cash considerations. The New York Yankees need to start cooking because if Aaron Judge goes his whole career without winning a championship, that will probably be one of the biggest disappointments in New York sports history. And you can check out all the New York Minute Sports right here on YouTube and Instagram, NEWYRKMIN. And remember, it's New York Minute Sports. It's New York sports for New York nuts. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you can't be good, be bad, baby. Good night, Canada. Bye.